yeah, I've got a temper. I will admit it. I have a temper. I have anger management issues. Screw anger management. I am pissed off. I don't believe in anger management. I think we need to be angry. We evolved to feel anger and rage for a reason. It's the reason we are alive, and all of our competition in those pre-human hominid days are dead. So we should embrace that which allowed us to be here today. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this story that's sort of being fanned up. It started with over at Infowars.com about this document that was leaked about Kellogg Brown Root and how they're starting to hire and staff up for all these FEMA concentration camps. And all these training manuals are leaked onto the line, and all these ads are suddenly appearing at military websites about we're hiring civilian detention contractors and all this other stuff that's going on there, all the rest of it. And everybody's saying, oh, well, hard on the heel of that indefinite detention bill, they're getting ready to lock Americans up. Well, maybe. I'm not sure if this isn't just another booga-booga by the government to scare us all into going back and being silent, to call off the Occupy movement, to go back to our slave pens and be happy little serfs, working ourselves to death in order that our money be taken and given to those poor, those suffering bankers who gambled their way into trillions in debt and need our help to bail themselves back out again. So, and the reason I'm wondering that is it's almost a little too obvious. It's almost a little too heavy-handed how much of this information is all of a sudden there right before the public's eyes. I mean, if the government were really going to suspend the Constitution and start rounding up people, do you think they would allow the public to know about it in advance? The government has their own internet. It's called the Milnet. After the ARPANET escaped into the public and became the Internet, the government backed off and built another parallel one called the Milnet. And that's where this kind of stuff normally goes. They have secure lines of communication. They don't need to use the open public Internet any more than real genuine terrorists would, if there were any. This feels to me like it's a propaganda campaign, and it's hard to say one way or the other. Has the United States government actually planned to imprison dissidents in special camps? Probably. They're always planning for all these worst-case scenarios. And right now, Occupy has got them all worried about it. And they understand the banking system's getting ready to fail, and we, the people, are going to be furious that our economy and our nation was destroyed by the Congress and White House of 1913 that sold us into the slavery of a banking system which by design had to fail sooner or later. Okay? Now, can the government really lock up a couple of 100 million Americans in concentration camps? I don't know. There's a lot of people there. Depends on how many dissidents there are. Would they lock up a few people to make an example of and hope that that would scare the rest of America? Yeah, they'd probably do that. Would it work? I'm not so sure. Because my reaction when I read all of this stuff was I felt myself getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And I think that's going to be the reaction all across the United States of America. First of all, because of the insult to us all, that this little bit of booga-booga is going to scare us into going back to being silent. I don't think that's going to work. I haven't seen any signs it's going to work. If anything, people seem to be getting even angrier about this affront to our persons, to our nation, to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights. The government's practically advertising that it's gone rogue. We don't have a legitimate government in the United States of America anymore. We have the Fourth Reich. Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil. But all this information that came out about training manuals and Kellogg Brown Root contracts and camps being activated and hiring up guards and everything, there's almost a little too much of it, a little too soon, and a little too easy to get at. I think it's a psyop. I think they're trying to booga-booga you all to being obedient, silent slaves again, and I don't think it's going to work. All right, we're going to grab a couple of phone calls real quick. Steve from New Jersey. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? First thing I have to say is, I'm glad you're angry. We all need to get a lot more angry.
Yes, you do.
Because that's the only way people are going to get so fed up with this situation. I want to kind of talk about a couple points you brought up yesterday. with the concentration camps and things like that. And, you know, the old adage of history is always written by the winners.
Yes.
My wife is from Estonia. She grew up behind the Iron Curtain for 20 years, basically half of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I visited there, and when you talk to people from, you know, the other side of history, the first thing they'll tell you is they would 10 times out of 10 prefer a Nazi soldier over a Russian soldier any day of the week.
Yes, I heard
They
that.
said the Nazi soldiers would come to your door, they would knock, you know, excuse me, do you have any spare food? The Russians would just come to your door and kick it in. And, you know, those people over there, they suffered under a Russian regime that one of the first things I noticed when I went to that country is you could tell the people were just beaten down. And even though it was, you know, so many years later after the wall fell,
Mm-hmm.
and they were quote-unquote free, they still had that mindset of walk down the street, head down, don't talk to anybody, because you don't know what they're going to say or who they're going to report back to.
Yeah, the informants,
or
that whole paranoia
like
thing.
that.
I think that's what they're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get us to the point of we don't dare talk to anybody, we don't text anybody, we don't dare email anybody because the government is watching everything that you. We are watching you at all times. Our eyes are everywhere. We can read your minds. We can predict ahead of time that you will do bad things. And it's a gigantic bluff. There aren't that many people in government to watch all of us. We already know from all their facial recognition technology that all these very expensive computer systems they have to keep an eye on us are false positiving all over the place. It's a reign of terror. We're trying not to move because we're not doing anything wrong. We're just afraid the computers will make a mistake and say, oh, take that one away and have him waterboarded.
Yep, and the best way to counteract that is, like we first said, be angry, get even angrier, be one of those people that on Black Friday went out and bought one of those 130,000 firearms.
Yes.
And just be ready to not take it anymore.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. We need to just be sick of this stuff because it's all just so ridiculous.
I was kidding around with my wife Claire just a little while ago, saying that maybe it's time to trade in the Hawken gun, you know, for an AR-15.
There you go. I'd like to mention two documentaries that people would probably find very interesting as well as inspirational. One is called The Singing Revolution, and it's all about the Estonian people that have this humongous countrywide singing festival every year.
Yes.
And they were told by the Soviets, you're not supposed to sing your national songs, and basically they said, you know what, screw you, we're doing it, and, you know, it's part of what tore down that Soviet power structure in that country. And the second one's very interesting. Is called Disco and Atomic War, and it's basically how people behind the Iron Curtain were picking up television signals from across the Baltic.
Yes.
And this, you know, very interesting interplay. But most interesting, what you find out is at the end, is that the Soviets could have stopped those signals coming from the U.S. Antennas at any time. They allowed the signals to come through because they wanted to see how it would affect society behind the Iron Curtain. So, you know, again, it's just interplay between politicians and governments.
It's all a carefully staged illusion. We got to take a break for commercials.
Exactly.
We got to take a break. Thanks an awful lot, Steve. We got to take